So we got the Volkswagen in the shop. This is our V6 Volkswagen. Just picked up that pallet jack. So we're gonna use that to pull the engine and transmission out so I can separate it and do the timing. So we got, went ahead and got a transmission filter, so I'm gonna do that as well while I'm doing this. So we'll do a filter and fluid change. These are exhaust manifolds, timing chains, tensioners and guides. So basically it should be everything we need. We have new camshaft position sensor, silicone sealant that they use for the oil pan. If you order an oil pan gasket for this particular engine anyways, this is the 2007 3.6 liter V6, you will get a tube of their silicone. So yeah, we got timing components, a new valve cover gasket, because you got to pull the valve cover or the intake and valve back off. I think this is actually the intake gasket. Replacement bolts. I think this is my oil pump drive gear bolt. It's notorious for loosening off. So we should have everything here. These are all our new tools that we bought for these European cars. It has a security lug nut on it, so I got this kit, and it does have the right one in there to pull the security lug nuts off of that. So ended up being a handy thing to have. Then I got swivel joint metric impact sockets, and then these are your different Torx and triple square spline bits that you need for this Volkswagen and other European vehicles. So add to my tool list. Stay tuned. I think it's going to be fun. Something new, that's for sure. As you see, I don't have a lift. We'll be using that and a floor jack. Okay, so we got the front off for the most part. First time wasn't too bad, but we did find a few things. But we should be good coming straight out with it now. We'll have to take the wheels off, separate the ball joints. But we found where they had broke the oil cooler for the power steering oil cooler. So we're draining it anyways, so it needed to be flushed. Here's the tank. So we'll probably look at getting new hoses, the new oil cooler, and replace it, and we'll have a good cooling system flush. That's where we're at here. Here's your header. So the condenser and the oil cooler, power steering cooler, radiator all come off as one unit. And then we got the header that holds the headlights and everything on. Right there. Yeah, we'll start taking the wheels off now, get the frame up on jack stands, and go from there. So underneath was fairly straightforward. There's a total of 6 subframe bolts, one just above that tie rod there, between the tie rod and the axle shaft, one to the rear, and then you also have the 2 bolts on each side for the cross member on the transmission, and then on the subframe forward bolt there's one just in front of the drive or axle shaft. So 3 on each side, so a total of 6, not counting your transfer case cross member. Then you disconnect your exhaust pipes. I did it right here. There's a hanger there attached to the cross member. Disconnected the shift linkage and then also took the bracket. There's 2 bolts that hold that bracket to the side of the transmission housing. There's 3 connectors that you disconnect from the transmission itself. And you move back towards the transfer case. And we have 2 connectors going to the transfer case. Let's see if I can get a better angle here. Alright, 2 connectors you can see here that go to the transfer case. Disconnect those, and then you can move on to your drive line, rear drive line. You don't touch your front one, just the rear. There's 6 bolts total for that coupler. Just need to disconnect or remove 3 of the 6 bolts, and that'll release your drive line. We took the control arm bolts out. We found that would be preferred over busting the ball joint, because Volkswagen, or they don't sell just the ball joint on this. From what I can find, it's you gotta replace the whole control arm, and ours is fine. So we just took these 2 bolts out, and we took the lower stabilizer link, sway bar link bolt out, loosened this one up so we could pivot it up, and we took the lower shock mount bolt out. We disconnected the brake line right here, and we disconnected the sensor pigtail right here and zip tied it to the control arm so it doesn't get damaged. So we took this bolt out. That leaves us 4 subframe bolts on each side, including the transfer case cross member. So we got our jacks pallets sitting underneath the subframe. We can get to everything. We disconnected our PCM from right here. Pull it back. And you'll also have to disconnect from your fuse panel. There's 3 connectors. Connected these, disconnected them. There's 4 connectors there. We disconnected this vacuum hose. We disconnected cooling line here, cooling line down here. Sorry, down here. Disconnected the steering shaft bolt, and we'll see from there. Took the fender liners off. All right, we got all the subframe bolts out. Just lower it a little bit to make it easier. You need to disconnect this vacuum line, and that's what leads here to the firewall. And then you'll need to disconnect your fuel line right here. Disconnect it from there. Let it sit down. And that should be just about it, other than my refrigerant lines off my pump. I think that's the last few things. That's it. We got it completely out. This took us, we did about 2 hours every evening after work, about 3 evenings. So we estimate about 5 hours it took us to remove the engine from start to finish. Car looks pretty crazy, I think. Definitely an interesting project. We're pretty happy with the way it all came apart. Now that we've done it once, I think when we get ready to do our TDI diesels, we're going to be pulling the motors on that as well. And that will be a lot easier. We'll have a better idea. You can pull the V6 out by itself, but I decided to pull the whole assembly out because that intake manifold is just a real pain to get on, and with the lower fuel rail and the fuel line fitting. So it just makes it a lot more difficult. So we figured might as well pull the whole assembly out, and I'm glad we did because this wasn't too bad. If you got any questions on it, leave a comment down below. I'll try to answer it. Here we can see the whole engine assembly and transmission, transfer case. You don't need to do anything with your front drive line. We use zip ties to make sure the spindles didn't fold out too far and damage the axle shafts. It's crazy to think there's only 6 bolts that hold the subframe on, and then 4 that hold the transmission cross member on. Yeah, so we'll probably call it for this video. In the next video, we'll start tearing it apart, separate the transmission and engine so we can get access to the rear of the engine where the timing components are. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe and so you get alerts when we put out a new video.